So, as I go into some concepts in terms of like thinking about posture and revisiting the way that we maybe view it, hopefully some of the concepts that we talk about will help to shed some light on that. I thought about actually passing around a piece of paper and having everybody answer these questions, and I just thought that would take too much time. But what is posture? And it's like, how much time do you really have? Okay? There's a lot to it, and we've really oversimplified it over the years, and we've really created these very linear mindsets, not everybody, but many people, as to what it means to us or what it means to the people that we work with. And this obviously is a tough one, right? It's like, what is good posture? Might mean something different to everybody, but my answer is, for what? I mean, that's what posture is. It's where you are for the given task at hand. We think of it as the pictures that we take and the plumb lines that we look at and the snapshots on the grids and. But we're looking at snapshots in time. And we'll kind of build on that concept a little bit. But, how strong is their core, right? How straight are they as they navigate this? Frankly, 2 of them pregnant. Miles, I'm sure, probably with incredible amounts of weight on their head. Stacking their systems in a well-balanced way that they can undulate and navigate this terrain barefoot. Okay? And so we think about what posture means with tight this and engage that and put this into different positions, when the reality is most of the time we're actually potentially needing a little bit more movement and freedom of movement than I think many of us think, in particular if you're doing something like that. And I put that there because she might have to be super, super stiff, but she has to have just the right amount of mobility in order for her to be able to, again, fluctuate to manage that task, okay? So you always have to do these things and have quotes, right? So an overview of physiology and pathophysiology of postural control, human upright stance is an unstable condition. Let's just make it perfectly clear that the word stable should be carefully analyzed if we use that. Stable oftentimes senses rigidity, but stability can have a lot of different meanings to it. We are supposed to be unstable. Our system, depending upon your belief system, as we rolled out of the murky depths of some fluid-based bubbling process, rolling, gradually crawling, developmentally still to this day crawling, is the instability that we all need to have. We just don't want to have it go too crazy on us that we can't manage it. Charles Sherrington, brilliant neurophysicist from the early 1900s, way ahead of his time, frankly way ahead of a lot of times of people today in terms of the work that he did. Posture follows movement like a shadow. It's always kind of there, but it's always about movement. And it's the movement that allows our system to not only do the tasks that we want, but as I stand here and talk to you and I have these subtle little movements, it's called digestion. And my pumping of my cerebral spinal fluids and the motility of my internal organs and fascial network that's able to tell me, don't go too far or you'll end up down there. And then can I recover and bring myself back into place? So posture is a word humans made up to represent something they made up, to describe an assumed position they made up, to justify a problem they made up. So who's that quote? That'd be me. So, I'm trying to make fun of it, but as a general rule, again, we've created this stigma, and I'm sure that anybody who's worked has either, with good intentions, worked on the posture with their patients and clients, I'm sure. And you've had people come in, and everybody has bad balance, and everybody has bad posture. You'd think these people are falling over all day long, okay?
May I take a picture of that?
Of course you can.
Thank you so
I have a couple things. One, I'll obviously be sending these slides out to everybody, and I have a kind of a supplemental sheet that'll have some accessory reading and some other things that for people who want to kind of delve in a little bit further. Some definitions. Can I ask a large favor?
Yeah.
I'm terrible with time.
Okay.
Just give me roughly 5 minutes from when I should roughly be. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you. I'm not going to read a bunch of these things. I put the verbiage on there for people to be able to go back looking through, but it's basically movement. It's position. It's what's the task they're doing. How rigid are they? How tight are they? How engaged are they? It's about the body's ability to be able to be comfortable And in other situations, be uncomfortable because that task might require you to be in positions and recruit things that don't allow your brain to feel as safe and as stable, let's just say, as it's used to. And it's also a state or condition at a given time with respect to, important word, capability. Obviously, people who have trauma, people who have neurological issues, people who have true structural stuff going on who can't assume certain positions to do the stuff we want, it's a different situation. But more times than not, through good training, through an integrative team that can kind of help guide people in the right direction, you can actually help to restore this. The fancy medical looking stuff, right? So, the sensory feedback time delay, basically our visual system, our vestibular system, our somatosensory system, interoception, exteroception, proprioception. There's a word called graviception, which is literally our internal mechanism that perceives and senses gravity and grounding situations. Works with our motor control to be able to help to create outputs, to be able to manage our center of balance, our center of mass, our body's ability to be able to have a good base of support to navigate whatever it is we're doing. More words to look up on your own. This was fun, actually putting all these P's together. So posture is its position, it's personal. I'm going to harp on a couple of them. It's personality, right? There are people like we showed you in those first couple slides. Their personalities are very, very different in how they present themselves to the world in terms of their sense of personality and self, which is fabulous. And you can see it with how people carry themselves in certain situations versus how other people carry themselves in certain situations. And it's a subtle little adjustment sometimes. Proper, obviously, getting deep into the ethics of things and royalty and nobility and people trying to mimic and mirror those of stature because that's just admirable. Propulsion. I just went through propulsion. If I sprinted across the room, that's the propulsion everybody's aware of. But a system that actually just pushes into a ground, it's called propulsion. So our ability to be able to manage propulsion in a seated, standing, and then obviously a much more dynamic state is part of what allows us to be able to navigate all of this life, all of this ground, all this movement that we're trying to move ourselves for. We hope it's purposeful at times. We have to be aware versus the times that actually we're not as aware during certain tasks and, the back or the hip or the neck or something kind of strains. Then it's a little bit of a different scenario. It's the only one that's not, but there is the P in there, right? So, but it can be incredibly empowering for people for many different reasons. This is all about, this started as an airway group, and it's still an airway group, but we recognize there's a lot more to an airway than just what we think of as the airway. My entire day is about pressurizing people and having them understand the importance of balancing out their pressurization system. That's how I have them morph their shape. That's how I have them navigate ground and gravity. That's how I have them manage upright tasks. That's how I have them get to high-level performance, is managing that system that most people I see, I can't speak for all of you, don't manage well. And it's not any fault of their own. It's just stuff that their system and their brains and their bodies have gotten used to that over the course of time have developed compensations. And those compensations have been very effective and really helpful until they're not. And that's when potentially problems can occur. It's without a doubt potentially pathologizing. It is without a doubt something that people worry about. They are concerned about their posture. They've been told, I've had numerous parents bring their child in. Their posture's terrible. Can you see them for that? We want to work on that. Absolutely. They need to understand this first. And then we actually work on their senses and we work on their body's ability to understand their body, navigating, again, pressure points and contact points way more than trying to navigate space. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And it's certainly perplexing. And it's definitely also all of these as well. It's sexist, it's racist, it's reductionist, it's static, it's biased, it is hierarchical, it's judgmental, it is, if you look through the history of it, it is really a testament to, I love the human organism, but we are an inherently flawed species. But please recognize that there's all of these elements that feed into it as well too, and some of them are deeply ingrained in people's culture, their upbringing, what they've had exposure to, and so on and so on. And sometimes that can actually dictate the way that they carry their carriage. Again, I'm not going to go through I have a webinar I did one that went deeper into the evolution history of it, if you would, but people are familiar with this concept. Once we got upright to navigate, they don't really know why, but as we went upright and tried to get our senses to be able to look at the horizon better and navigate what's going on better and hunt better, and then we started to become a little bit more, again, unstable. All fours animals, crawling early on in life, the diaphragm functions like this. Pelvic floor functions like this. It's part of the perturbations of a system that's moving this way on all fours. Well, it's different once we've tipped gravity in a different direction. Now it's not quite as stimulated by all those contact points that we get from the pressurization of the ground as we've gotten more upright. Some people navigate it better than others. Obviously, we're all kind of familiar with this one, kind of the evolution. It's funny, it's not funny, right? Because it's so telling and true, the direction that this is going now. For a lot of different reasons, we don't have time to go into that today, and we just hope it doesn't turn into like a Homo sapien that ends up migrating down to a tougher level. Just super brief, Industrial Revolution kind of just really set into place just this massive train of things that changed in our society, changed in our lives, changed in so many different ways. Again, you can do a real deep read into it and understand the kind of the impact that it's had on us, but we're continuing to go through it now. People are actually considering we've gone through we're in our fourth industrial revolution. That second one was where mass production started to happen. Kids are actually now kind of coming out from the farms and being outside all day long. Now they're forced to be in classrooms and educate themselves, which is good-ish. But that's where the American Posture League came in, and now they have to kind of keep the students to be able to pay attention. So that's where posture screenings came in, and category. It's and on and on and on when you look through history. Okay, but these right here are making us less and less and less mobile, and more and more convenient, and more comfortable, because that's what everybody wants. And it's awesome until it's not. So some internal considerations. Is anybody not familiar with this term biotensegrity? And don't feel bad if you're not. Okay. So it's based upon the concept of tensegrity, which is tension and integrity. And that concept's built upon like those, you can kind of see the structure makeup of the points and the bands that are kind of holding that structure. And if you think about those gymnasium things, that they have how those work really well. Stephen Levin is a physician who started the whole concept of tensegrity and biotensegrity. There's so much information on it out there. It's a neat process concept to get your head around in terms of understanding how the way that the body positions and moves and orients itself, but in particular how it's able to build itself. And you can see how stable a structure it is based upon those various angles, which there are none in our body, just to be clear, angles, if you would, and how if you kind of put it into a position of stature, if you would, what that might look like. The building blocks, if you would. So it's a great concept, bio obviously meaning life, and how that carries over that tensegrity concept into our being, and how it affects connective tissue position, muscle tendon structures, the way that things kind of move around different joints and bones and structures. Again, there's a lot of information out there. It's a really neat study. But I want people to appreciate this dynamic of the human body internally versus a lot of the stuff that we've been kind of exposed to, which is thinking about it as we have a skeleton, we have these muscles and tendons that move us, and we have this other stuff that kind of holds us together. We are a fluid-based system. And if you Google that word, that's actually my word. I'm not sure if it's on there under my name, but I threw that one together because it's fun to make up words, right? But that's how we are. And that goes back to what I mentioned in terms of like the system. We came out 100% fluid, right? And that baby comes out, it is all water. That's why it's flopping around. It was floating in a sack. And over the following decades, we lose a little bit of that, but we maintain mostly water content down at the molecular level. We don't have that in today's world. We think of things very linearly. We don't think about it from the fluid-based dynamics, if you would. And that's where sometimes people have lost the benefits of Tai Chi, proper yoga, movement activities that's allowing the body to be able to flow more dynamically based upon that mechanism. Kind of like that. And if you can kind of picture, that's actually a really cool picture, obviously, but you can kind of picture that that's our internal network. That's the way our body works. Even the very creases in her outfit are reflective of what's happening inside us. We are creasing everywhere. And we can manage those creases and use them well and escape from them to allow us to be able to propel us into the next movement. Our connective tissue allowing us to be able to kind of maintain form and say, I got you, I've maintained some elasticity, let me bring you back to this position here. And then over the course of time, have the body begin to gradually take that on in a position that's consistent for it to be able to use during the daytime. So this is arranging domes, holes, and cavities, meaning internally you are working on domes underneath. You're working on many domes, I understand. You're working on domes up high, right? More times than not. We got domes, we've got domes, we've got domes, we've got domes, we've got domes, we got domes everywhere. And part of my work and part of the work of all of you in your own way is arranging those domes in a way to allow the system to be able to most optimally position itself, to orient it, to take advantage of those domes' capability of maintaining shape. Oh yeah, and be able to do it and breathe without having to compensate in some way because we don't manage our domes well, that way or that way. And I want to arrange people into a position that they can then say, can you breathe there? Can you expand and compress to get yourself to a place that I got it, I'm in control of it, and now I can, and then I can alternate. And my body can do this. And not what many people do when you see them out walking, which is this. Or arms swinging back, or one arm swinging, or elbows bending, or a body that's not truly, developmentally, alternating. Watch people walk around Back Bay. It's a petri dish. It's pretty. Not being critical.
A postural petri dish.
Postural petri dish, yeah. So an organization that I do some work with, they've called this kind of respiratory neurodontics because sometimes they need a dentist. Sometimes they need an osteopath. Sometimes they need a neuro-optometrist to better manage the body's visual, vestibular, occlusal awareness of their body to be able to get all that stuff to stack into positions. I want to give them grounding sense, meaning this person, as you can see, is in a very sway-backed position. His center of mass is very forward. He doesn't have the ground, if you would. I'm a big air quote person. But after getting him to understand how to navigate it better, changing diaphragm and internal body position orientation, getting the system to be able to create a better canister, and having him be in this position, he feels, one, like he's falling over because he's wobbly. Number two, he feels like he's slouching there. I have hundreds of pictures on my phones of people sitting, and I take a picture of them once we restore a change in that sense. And it's going to be different for them. And it's a challenge sometimes to have this not get in the way of good sound stacking of the body. Same idea. You know, you can see this position. She was a ballet growing up, obviously. Very trained, rigid. They just hold these forms. And then over the course of time, you get them to kind of understand positioning their domes better, get their system to create a better sense of what's happening underneath them, get them to be able to feel it and appreciate it. Change the perception of upright. Every one of these people felt like they were slouching. Okay? Now, is it what we learned in school with shoulder blades back and get your chin tuck and all this? No. But I don't think that's how we work. Do I want people to do that if they have to because they're in the military? Of course I do. Or they have to because they need to present themselves to the world that way for some reason? Absolutely. It's called variability. But do me a favor, that's home base. That's where I want you to be. Oh, and can you, thank you, and swallow, right? And swallow. So some clarifications. I have a chemistry teacher. She's got some of the best t-shirts, you know, they're just great. And she got to me because she tripped and fell and broke her back. So The gravity of the situation is that gravity gets a bad rap, right? So that's the reason posture is bad for everybody, because of gravity's incessant pull. It's constantly the weight of the force of gravity is pulling us down, right? Bad message for something we all have, we're all navigating, and is how we got here, okay? So I thought I would do everybody a favor, and let's just go right into Einsteinian and Newtonian physics, right? Isn't that awesome? It's not what I'm doing. I love that. That's awesome. If I say gravity to you, I'm sure at least one of you, the first thing that comes to your mind is an apple falling from a tree. Is that a fair way to phrase it? Okay. And that's what we learn in school. And of course it's valid. And that's Newtonian concepts, which were brilliant. And it's how he got us to the moon, for crying out loud. The guy was a genius, but it's very linear. It's an apple falling from a tree. If the apple lands smack on the ground, and let's say there's that much of an incline on the ground, what does the apple do? Rolls. That's this guy. It's acceleration. Okay? Newtonian physics is more linear. And it's awesome. And it's a force that's pulling us. It's fixed. Okay? It's apples and trees. This guy, I want to be clear. I only know as much as I can possibly feel like I know, okay, when it comes to this. But point being is that you can see the differences in the mindsets. It's an acceleration. It's curves. It's warping. It's space-time. It's flexible. It's supposed to be. Okay? So if we can rethink of it, wouldn't it be better if we had a better message to look at gravity as something that encourages us to move, both internally and externally, rather than a force we cannot control that's constantly pulling us? It's one of the fundamental forces. I know it's a force. I recognize that, along with electromagnetics. There's an energy thing in there somewhere, obviously, but and then weak and strong magnetic force. But point being is that I don't want those words in people's heads, because in my mind that's going to create a stigmatism or an issue that goes back to the pathologizing piece. Gravity's just here to help us move. Let's take advantage of it. Let's get something straight. Okay? So can you see how flawed standing up straight is? There is nothing straight in our body. There are no planes. Sorry. Sagittal, frontal, transverse. They're good for conversation, but they don't really exist. Okay? We can say lift your arms in a sagittal plane. That's fine, but it's all rotation. I'm externally rotating, internally rotating, externally rotating, internally rotating. That's how that arm is moving. Period. For conversation's sake, keep the language up. It's helpful, okay? In your mind, try not to think that way, okay? Ergonomics, they're realizing more and more, maybe really isn't the way we should have been doing things. So again, ergonomically speaking, if we sit with the way that this talks about, feet propped up like that, propped, lumbar support, perfect position. That's not how we work, okay? That person cannot breathe properly, period, because their back cannot expand. We are a system that has a rib cage shaped like this, okay? Some people's are shaped like this. Some people's are shaped like this. There's varying shapes. But as a general rule, this thing should do this. Just like the pelvis, just like the cranium, because there are no planes and no straight lines. Does that make sense? So if this person's in that position, right? And so if someone teaches them to do some breathing activities but don't get them to understand, you got to get your back to open up. You got to get your posterior pelvic outlet to open up, because those guts got to go down and back. If they're not going down and back, your system's going to have to compensate. And similarly in standing. Really, in my mind, I want everybody to be a desk jockey, okay? I want people to move. I want people to sway a little bit side to side if they're at a standing workstation. Standing's no better than sitting, honestly, for the long haul, if you're just standing. I want people to shift their weight forward and back a little bit. Put a stool up, absolutely, it helps. Yep, shift your weight forward and back a little bit. Go back to work, pay attention. But go in and out of stuff. Similar with sitting. I really encourage people to when possible, not use the roller chairs. I understand they're convenient, but all it's going to do is it's going to make you feel like you have to stabilize somewhere else in order to stabilize yourself on this rolly thing. And I don't want feet propped up like that if possible. I want them flat on the ground. I want shoes on their feet. I don't want heels on their feet, because you can't properly get your system to sense and feel the loads like you're supposed to when it's like that. If you have to, it's fine. But as long as I give them the message and tell them ultimately what's going to help them best, then typically it works out pretty well. These are two great books. Okay? Again, they'll be on the reference list. But look at the difference in titles. Like, that's the confusing messages that our patients are dealing with all the time. I tell clients regularly, I'm like, one of the biggest challenges you're going to have is that you're going to leave here and my message is not going to be reinforced in many places. You're going to get a lot of conflicting information based upon what we're doing. So is that okay? Sure, if they understand home base. Is that okay? Sure, if they understand home base. During the daytime, where do I want them? Let's kind of get them in the middle. Let's kind of get them, kind of segueing in and out of those two disciplines, those two positions. Be able to kind of get in and then get back out of it. So, I think this is a great example. I am never critiquing or criticizing. I'm critiquing, my apologies. I'm not criticizing. But in my mind, you've got someone who just really kind of overshot the mark. I mean, good intentions, but literally, unless he's heading into the military, same idea. That is not going to be a position that's going to sustain movement. Okay? And same idea here. They do these exaggerated things to have people understand better, but that's a rigid structure. That's that rib cage that has been pushed forward.
They just changed the pelvis, not the rib cage.
Correct. Yep. So once that, again, if anybody cues on pelvic tilting and all this stuff, that's fine. You do you, but in my mind, that's not sustainable. It's not how we're supposed to work. Let's get all the domes to a place. Let's get all the holes. Let's get that foramen magnum, thoracic aperture, thoracic outlet, pelvic inlet, pelvic outlet. Let's get those holes stacked up on top of each other so the body can move more effectively. This rib cage gets very little attention. It's kind of interesting. Everybody do this with your fingers if you would, please. So put your 3 fingers tip to tip and then your thumbs, okay? And let's just call these pinkies like your lower ribs, okay? There's false ribs and then there's floating ribs. The false ribs are the ones that attach to cartilage. They don't attach to the sternum. Does that make sense? Okay. So this should do open, okay? Outward orientation, expansion, okay? If I keep your fingers here and if you turn your body and let your fingertips turn, can you see the way that your fingers turn like this? Yes. Can you do that a couple more for everybody in back? Awesome, great job. That's how ribs should work. Does that make sense? Because there are no planes. She would have to turn in her spine because she's holding all those ribs as a unit. Does that make sense? So I want people to be able to kind of appreciate that element, and I like this model because I say, by the way, that's how they are inside a living body. They're bendy, kind of like our other bones. So again, with the ability to morph, to be able to shape change, be able to kind of take on a different orientation is very, very possible with practice and awareness. If a little assistance is indicated, sure, absolutely. Someone needs a little bit of something to give them some tactile cueing, absolutely. Some people really feel like they need these things. Absolutely. I mean, if that's going to help you, that's great. I really don't think he needs it, just to be clear, but that's just me, But if people need assistances along the way, that's great. I'm like, well, I just don't want you to relying on these things. Let's keep going through the activities so that you eventually get to a point you don't need these extra props. Did you know that that's how we're supposed to recover? And that the age-old mechanism of this is not how we're supposed to recover? I learned growing up, that age, just to be perfectly clear, that showed weakness. That showed strength. Remember my coaches telling me. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it hurts so bad to do that. You're like,
Yeah. But that's how we're supposed to recover because, again, that back is opening up.
But you see that, like, you hear that from sports commentators, when they see athletes in that position, they're like, oh, like,
They really
this is a
They
weakness.
really
It's a
gassed
weakness.
out.
They're
Take
gassed,
advantage of that
correct.
'cause
Everybody
they're
stand for a sec
up-
for me,
up
please.
in there trying to recover.
Let me just, I'll demonstrate one thing, I think. So put your hands, the heel of your hands on your, just above your knees. And as you rest your weight there, yeah, good, awesome. As you rest your weight there, do you feel your obliques work just a little bit? Good. Do you feel your shoulder blade muscles work just a little bit? Great. Slowly inhale, slowly. Feel your back expand. Okay. Okay. So it's all the muscles we're going after for breathing, right? So what commentators don't know, and some coaches you can sit if you'd like, is that it's not that. But I wanted to put that up there just to kind of say some of the things we've been told, some of the things maybe we had thought actually are doing way more than we think they are. People familiar with Amy Cuddy's work, the power posture, power pose. She did this TED Talk years ago. It's a really good TED Talk. Subsequent research kind of gave her a hard time. She's a Harvard professor. And then other research is saying, no, actually she was kind of right. So the reality is that your cortisol levels, your sense of confidence, your brain's feeling in the world is going to be empowered if you assume positions that allow you to be able to open yourself up to the world versus closing yourself off to the world. Like, I'm really trying to simplify the concept, okay? But it's important when you see people that are in your clinic, in your studio, in your whatever, how they present to you regularly during initial intakes and visits can actually be telling you a lot about them. And that's part of some of the behaviors that we want to look for that allow us to be able to have conversations, to allow the interventions we have people do to be just that much more effective. So, how's my time?
You're good. You got 7 minutes.
Oh, yes. It's perfect, thank you. So obviously I have this for a reason because it's cool looking, nice white rocks, okay? But it's not stacked like a castle. It can undulate. It can give, okay? I want things to be upright. I want it to be able to be upright. I don't want heads forward, I get all the stuff. But if we keep saying straight, people will think about straightness as what the goal is. I use the word stack a lot. That I think speaks to people better than alignment. Stacking is that sense of like, oh yeah, like I stacked the Jenga blocks. I stacked this on top of things. I got my sits bones right up underneath me. I got my butt bones right there. Do you feel the weight of them? Yeah. Do you feel your feet? No, not really. Well, they're kind of turned out. Can you just bring them up just underneath you just a little bit? Great. You feel your feet underneath you? Yeah, great, awesome. And then do me a favor. I want to have you get to a point you feel like you can't, you can't push yourself down. Do me a favor, slowly inhale. And I want you to feel like it kind of goes front to back. Some people, when they first come in, won't be able to do that. That's either at the end of the session or a subsequent session because we got to get their system to be able to be adaptable enough to allow that to happen. But I want them to appreciate that 360, circumferential, whatever word speaks to you, breathing mechanism. And I'll even tell people at times, which I'm sure you're quite aware of, I want to have you inhale into your pelvis. I want to have you see what that feels like because the guts go down when we inhale. So I want that pelvis to feel that sense of gravity, that sense of load coming down into it. I want to have you as you exhale, and you're exhaling longer than you normally would because we're trying to work on getting that to kind of come back up, that you can kind of feel those forces going down and up. That'll help to kind of ground the system a little bit more. I want people to manage things and not tighten stuff. Again, people come in a lot of times, glute amnesia, dorsal glute amnesia, and scapula, like all these little things, and nobody means bad, obviously. But that myopic way of looking at the body then becomes a very focused way that people then carry themselves. And you're the only one that I heard was pelvic floor specific, so I keep alluding to you with this.
I hope everybody talks about that.
Exactly, but
Secretively work on the pelvic.
I'm pretty sure I know where that is. But there's a lot of tight sphincters out there, and I'm telling you, it's
Literally or figuratively?
both. And it's any chance I get to use the word sphincter, I'm going to take. It's just one of the better words. But I'm not kidding you, and I mean that in both ways. There are a lot of people walking around that are over-clenched everywhere. Again, we could go into a deep dive as to the reasons why that is in today's world, but that's a big element of what we're going to try to get them to be able to have a better understanding of.
More men than women, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I'm like the other day I said, well, let me pull that $100 bill out of there. No, can't get that $100 bill out of there. Grounding versus propping. So again, as I mentioned, props are okay, but I want to have people really understand and appreciate. And grounding is a trendy word. I don't have time to go deep into it today, but it is way more than we actually get, and it goes all the way up to here, big time. And we are so disconnected with the ground in today's world. True grounding, not just the beautiful metaphysic, energetic aspect of what grounding really represents, or earthing, or any of that. Shifting. So I want people to just learn to move their pelvis and hips if they have to sit for long periods of time. And a shift is just sliding a thigh forward and back. I'm going to go from one butt cheek to the other butt cheek. One butt bone to the other butt bone. Take your body for a walk while you're at your desk answering that email. Do that 5, 6, 7 times. Sorry, for the camera. So it's just basically my thighs just doing this, just a little bit. I like the word canister more than core. So I'll use the word core with people if that's kind of what speaks to them, but core is kind of misrepresented as well too. I think a lot of you know, if you think about a canister, it's an element from here to here that is our whole trunk. And that whole trunk is supposed to have integrity to it. If we think core, people just think abs, and they don't understand the integration of being able to maintain that canister capability and be able to have it expand with control and compress with control to be able to manage their body weight and to be able to manage their positions. Some further refinements. Pressurize versus stabilize. Again, this is just for you in particular. They won't get this. But stabilization and strength training is half of what I do. It's an important part of what I think that people need in some way. But the element of them being able to understand how to manage those pressures and forces first so that they can then manage the load is key. Intrathoracic, intra-abdominal, intrapelvic pressure management is how we lift heavy stuff. Okay? And it's not bearing down in Valsalva the way that many people go about it. It's learning how to have that thing capture our canister to be able to do a task of some kind, and then be able to release just enough if that task has to continue so that we can aid that movement into the next position. Again, I like the word balance. I don't want stiffness. I don't want people thinking over stability. Just think balance. Again, these are just a little more, I'll say safer words, but they're more user-friendly and they're more effective at truly demonstrating in my mind what it is we're trying to accomplish with our body position. We are way too, again, focused. Our society is becoming more and more myopic. It is rampant. It is driven by so many factors yet again. But even just having people just back away from their computer and just looking out a window for a minute, just go down a hallway and look out for a minute. Just get your system to open up and appreciate space on both sides. When you're out for a walk, use all your senses, please. Hear the dog bark, 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 going by you, that Doppler thing. It's a big deal to our system. Feeling the wind, and then again, feeling periphery, seeing things pass by us out of the corner of our eye is how the system maintains the ability to undulate and balance and move more effectively. It keeps people from getting too rigid. Which also, I'm not going to bash it, but it's not just visual. You get hung up in a podcast all the time when people are walking. I'm not being critical of it. It's going to tighten you up because you become very focused. I want people to explore their senses, as I just mentioned. Ooh, I kind of prepped that one. Because giving them something that they can sense, giving them something they can feel through, a shoe on their foot, they feel the arch of the shoe under their foot that they can kind of push into the ground. I didn't say support. I said push into the ground, gives them that grounding sense. Ischial tuberosities, contact, body ability to be able to say, yeah, I feel my weight like right down. And I feel like I'm solid, dead weight on my feet. Is much easier to figure out than space. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? They can't. Most people can't figure that out. Another day-long topic conversation, right? Every now and then I encourage and I have the conversation with patients. I'm like, just try your best when you're doing something to differentiate what you're thinking of in your head that you think you have to take care of versus being where you are at that time. There's times we're forced to, obviously. But when I challenge people and have them pay attention to it and think about it, almost always they say, I had no idea how much I really wasn't there and how much I'm somewhere else. And you can't help self if your brain and your body are somewhere else. So bringing people back to presence versus being constantly distracted as we are, which is only getting worse, obviously, is a really, really big deal.
How do you teach them to do that? Are you asking them to meditate?
All types of things. Meditation, mindfulness. I said just do 5 minutes, just 5 minutes around your house with your kids, with your family, when you're out for a walk. Just observe. I give them a number because people need numbers. Pay attention. Look at the leaf blow down the street. See the trees go. Hear the dogs. Say hi to the neighbors. Smell stuff. Go in the woods. Stop going on the road. Just wherever I can, I just try to say, just try it for a period of time. And the other one I try to do, and yes, meditation, mindfulness work.
It's painful for people.
It's painful for people, without a doubt. That's why I say 5 minutes, because some people it's just too much. As I use my phone to record this, I have big issues with these things to the nth degree for way more than people think that I do. But those are slowly undoing us in many ways. All of them, all the things that go with them. And I'm not being critical. I'm just kind of giving you a little dose of reality. And it's going to continue to take that more and more away from us. And that will make us lose the ground more. And now we want hokas, and now we want more props, and now we want, you know what I mean? Now we want more convenience in our cars. Now all the stuff. Now I want my scooter to be motorized. Now I want, right? Feeling less. I kept seeing, I like this one, I really like it a lot. I believe Morgan Freeman wrote it, I think, but I couldn't get any confirmation on that. But your best posture is your next posture. And, this is paddleboarding in the BVI, and I have to be present, right? Like I can't be anywhere else. And so I tell people, to your point, go somewhere, do stuff where you have no choice. It just allows you to be able to kind of really pay attention to what's happening to your body, and realizing that as I fluctuate on the water and as the body's figuring out how to navigate different terrains, you're building your balance and your posture and your body's sense of orientation in this world. So,
whether he wrote that or not, it definitely sounds better if he says it.
Without a doubt. Well played. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. So hopefully that recorded. If it does, I know it recorded, but this should have made the voicing pretty good. So.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. No, it's super fun. So